Welcome back. For those following along in the series for Foundations of Trauma-Informed Care, we are now moving into the subsection on Trauma-Informed Care, or TIC for short. We will unpack what TIC is and what it is not. We will also spend some time with the 6 principles of TIC. Trauma-Informed Care. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, defines trauma-informed care using what we sometimes call the 4 R's. The definition reads as a program, organization, or system that is trauma-informed, realizes the widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths for recovery, recognizes the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, and others involved with the system, responds by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, and seeks to actively resist re-traumatization. It is important to note that the definition does not focus on any one individual. TIC instead focuses on how we can take the knowledge around trauma and infuse it into our workplaces and into other various systems we might be involved with in order to make them less harmful. TSS versus TIC. TSS stands for Trauma-Specific Services. These are programs, interventions, and therapeutic services aimed at treating the symptoms or conditions resulting from a traumatizing event. TIC is Trauma-Informed Care, which is an approach based on the knowledge of trauma aimed at ensuring environments and services are safe, empowering, and healing for service recipients and staff. These bullet points can help further differentiate between the two. TSS, there tends to be a focus on symptoms, promotion of healing, the teaching of skills, and an emphasis on psychological empowerment, mind-body connection, and other modalities. Whereas with TIC, there is a goal to guide policy, practice, and procedure with intentional focus on corrective emotional experiences, as well as workforce wellness. Lastly, the emphasis is on organizational culture change. There are many misconceptions around what TIC is and is not. Let's explore a few together. Firstly, TIC is not about excusing or justifying unacceptable behavior. However, it is about using a trauma lens to increase our understanding, which hopefully supports accountability and responsibility. It is not about just being nicer. Rather, it is about developing and practicing compassion. It is not about focusing on the negative. In fact, TIC is all about shifting the focus towards skill building, strength-based, and healing-centered care. TIC is not about attending just another training. It is instead about transforming spaces, practices, procedures, and policies, working together towards a complete culture shift. TIC is not about moving away from diversity, equity, inclusion, or resilience work. TIC is about including and partnering with other frameworks. Lastly, TIC is not about something new. TIC learns from many culturally specific programs. In the opening to Holding Change, author Adrienne Marie Brown says, "I believe that anything new I feel myself innovating is an adaptation of something that came before me." Let us keep that in mind as we navigate this journey together. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, identified the following 6 principles as being fundamental to a trauma-informed approach. 1. Safety. 2. Trustworthiness and transparency. 3. Peer support. 4. Collaboration and mutuality. 5. Empowerment, voice, and choice. And 6. Cultural, historical, and gender responsiveness. More detailed descriptions on the principles can be found in SAMHSA's Concept of Trauma and Guidance for Trauma-Informed Approach. For now, we'll explore each principle in more depth in the upcoming slides, and then we'll end with an applied example in the video. Safety. Starting with safety, it is imperative that everyone feels physically and psychologically safe. Everyone, meaning both the staff and the service recipients. Safety will look different to everyone, so taking the time to understand how safety is defined will help in the journey to co-creating safe environments. Trustworthiness and transparency. Building and maintaining trust must be a priority in all processes within the organization. This will manifest in different ways depending on the sector. One way to increase trust can start with conducting operations and decision-making in a transparent manner. Peer support. The term peers used here refers to individuals with lived experience of trauma, also sometimes called trauma survivors. This principle encourages utilizing the wisdom and insights from people with lived experience to foster recovery and healing organizationally. Meaningful relationships and collaboration with people with lived experience will ultimately improve safety, hope, and trust. Collaboration and mutuality. In TIC, there is a recognition that healing happens in relationships and in the meaningful sharing of power and decision-making. With that, there is attention to and an importance placed on partnering and the leveling of power differences. The organization recognizes that everyone has a role to play in a trauma-informed approach, regardless of your position title. Empowerment, voice, and choice. It is key that organizations understand the importances of power differentials and ways in which both staff and service recipients may have historically been diminished in voice and choice. In response, a trauma-informed organization might design and resource its operations, workforce development, and services to strengthen the experience of choice and to support empowerment for both the staff and the people they serve. In this process, the strengths of individuals and the community are both recognized and built upon. Cultural, historical, and gender responsiveness. The organization actively works towards advancing beyond cultural stereotypes and biases. This requires recognition of historical trauma and resilience, while also honoring the healing value of traditional cultural connections. An organization offers culturally responsive services through intentional policies, protocols, and processes that are responsive to all identities. Why is TIC important? While trauma can happen to anyone, it absolutely impacts more vulnerable populations in compounding ways. For example, factors like race, gender, past abuse, past systems involvement, social support, resources, etc., can make access to both resources and healing more complicated and less accessible. For some, services may even be less desirable. Trauma can affect how people view and interact with services. As mentioned well in the definition of systemic trauma, many people experience the service systems as activating and often re-traumatizing. Providers themselves and organizations as a whole can be profoundly impacted by both trauma and toxic stress. If you are following along in the workbook, please take a moment to reflect on some of the questions provided there. In general, we'd love for you to reflect on how TIC might be important to you, and how can this information apply to your work in particular. Next up is a video using the principles of TIC and applying it to a real-life scenario you may easily come across. You'll need about 8 minutes to watch this video to completion. Here are the references used in this subsection. Thank you.